Two things any decent person can't help but to do: showing respect and enjoying badass samurai sword fights. In Rurouni Kenshin Trust and Betrayal, you're getting only one of those things. Whenever you look up Trust and Betrayal, you notice the high acclaim surrounding it. Multiple times you see it rated as one of the greatest OVAs to ever be made. On my anime list, it's ranked number 2 among OVAs, coming only second to The Legend of the Galactic Heroes. And anybody that knows how much Galactic Heroes get sucked off knows that this is a pretty impressive feat. But what is Trust and Betrayal about? Trust and Betrayal adapts the prequel chapters from the classic shonen manga Rurouni Kenshin. It follows the main character Homura Kenshin during his days as Batosai, the Manslayer. During these days, he fought in the Boshin War as an assassin for what would later become Japan's Meiji government. And even though this OVA adapts chapters from later in the manga, you can still watch and enjoy this OVA even if you're new to the series. After watching this OVA, I couldn't help but agree with the high amount of praise that it gets. Despite some of their infamous works, Studio Dean actually got it right this time. This OVA pretty much does everything it does right, and even goes above and beyond in some departments. From the animation, fight choreography, music, and story, it's all A+. Studio Dean was in their bag while making this. Before going into all the deeper stuff that makes Trust and Betrayal so great, I want to get a little bit superficial here and talk about this OVA's presentation. It looks and moves really damn good, and that could be considered an understatement, especially when considering that this OVA was made in 1999. One of the original anime's weak points was its animation, which even for the years it aired felt flat. And even though I love the fights in the main anime, I couldn't help but imagine how some of them will look with better animation. In Trust and Betrayal, this is not the case. At times the OVA can go from these raw, gory, and bloody fights into slow, alluring moments. What enhances these moments even further is the music, which complements both the fast-paced battles and the slower sections of the OVA. When the final bad guy is running towards Kenshin and Kenshin leans in and hits that swoop and the music comes in just at the right moment, I couldn't help but get hyped. But even though Trust and Betrayal is sprinkled with more moments like this, selling you on the fights alone would be a giant disservice to this OVA. The parts of Trust and Betrayal that are going to hit you the hardest are its story, its themes, and its symbolism. Like mentioned earlier in the video, Trust and Betrayal follows Kenshin and how he wants to bring an end to the oppressive Tokugawa period. Trust and Betrayal does a solid job of nailing him as a tragic character. This isn't Kenshin as you know him from the anime or manga. This Kenshin is sliding up on people like the Grim Reaper and cutting them in half. This is the man that haunts Kenshin Homura's nightmares. This is Batosai the Manslayer, a person fierce, cold, and skilled enough to cut people through their bones. This is a stark contrast to the Kenshin of the original series. Trust and Betrayal adapts some of my favorite parts of Kenshin's story. The story of a young boy taking upon himself to help bring in a new era. An era in which even the weak can live in peace. You'd hear this and think to yourself that Kenshin is a hero, but the OVA doesn't glamorize or romanticize this idea. Just like in the original series, Trust and Betrayal makes it known that Kenshin being some sort of hero is not the case. This is further emphasized by the gory and ruthless killings he commits, in which he doesn't even flinch. The more you watch the OVA, the more it becomes apparent just how sad Kenshin's journey is. You see the adults around him betray or use him. The leader Kenshin works with gets to play board games with a beautiful geisha, while Kenshin on the other hand is getting ambushed and shackled up like a BDSM playmate. Just like the main series, Trust and Betrayal juggles some pretty heavy themes. Commentaries on justice and war are carried over from the main series. Kenshin's master Seijiro Hiko says although the many killed were evil, they were still human beings first and foremost. He lets Kenshin know that if he becomes a part of this war, no matter how noble his reasoning is, he'll still at the end of the day be a murderer, someone used by other men to right their own justice. And I love this idea of justice not being something cut and dried. Like I mentioned earlier, some would consider Kenshin a hero because his actions are for the greater good. But how could we do so after seeing how violent and merciless his killings are? Do the ends justify the means? There's no such thing as an absolute justice, and this is something made clear as you watch this OVA. On the other side of things, we have some interesting perspectives on war. Kenshin's side is fighting for something that can be deemed as honorable, but if you look at it from a different view, what they're doing is disrupting the way of life that people in Japan itself have lived under for centuries. No matter the reason or how you glamorize it, war is war. Opposite to the side you cheer for, there's victims and people's lives that are destroyed. And I find it great that Trust and Betrayal doesn't paint one side as more righteous over the other. Another theme of note is of course betrayal. What I find interesting about the betrayal theme is how characters aren't only betrayed by others, but are betrayed by themselves as they fall victim to their own passions or humanity. A great example of this is with Tomoe as she fails to achieve her mission after falling in love with Kenshin. You see her struggle internally as she succumbs to her feelings. The separation between love and hate is no thicker than a whisper is a quote used in Trust and Betrayal that sums up Tomoe's progression beautifully. The theme of love is also explored with Kenshin himself. Love is the catalyst for Kenshin's character development in Trust and Betrayal that you also see more of in the main series. I find it poetic how Kenshin's development unfolds as a result of love. When the OVA first starts, Kenshin is cold and doesn't bat an eye at the murders he commits. It isn't until he spends time and bonds with Tomoe that he sees for himself the after effects of his murders. Kenshin initially isn't aware of the severity of his decisions until he sees them take shape in the woman he loves, and this realization makes his decision regarding the war hit deeper. He's no longer just a boy ignoring the effects of his actions, and now instead acknowledges and assesses whether or not they're worth committing. At the beginning of Trust and Betrayal, you see Kenshin as a naive boy, but near the end he's matured and stands firm on his decision and no longer paints it as something black or white. It adds layers to him as a character and to a degree makes his resolve notable. Another aspect of Trust and Betrayal that I gotta commend is the tone. The OVA is filled with emotionally striking moments. Some scenes I felt conflicted on how to feel just because of the array of emotions they evoked for me. Like, I know this guy just got his wig pushed back, but god damn is that a pretty ass flower. Although this is an adaptation of a shonen manga, it really doesn't feel like one, and I would say that works for the better. Comedic scenes, tropey dialogue, and characters shouting out attack names. That's all in the manga, but not in Trust and Betrayal. Instead, what you're left with is something more serious that's easier to get immersed into. These small changes affect and convey the gravity of the story much better. Kenshin actually feels like someone going through dark shit because he doesn't smile and joke around with his comrades. Characters not shouting out their attack names make the fights feel like actual battles to the death. People saying little to nothing before they fight makes the fight more tense. In the manga, the final bad guy is yelling at Kenshin about having the shorty locked up in the back of the back. In Trust and Betrayal, they take that out and instead have him say that he's fighting to uphold the shogunate's order, that he's doing this to avenge his men and prevent more casualties on his side. So now he actually feels like a commander instead of some run-of-the-mill villain. And it's changes like this that make the story just so much more impactful. So in closing, if you're a fan of Rurouni Kenshin and you haven't watched this OVA, plain and simple, just watch it. If you're new or interested in the series, then also give it a shot. Some aspects of it might just be a little slow for you, but if you're a fan of darker, deeper storytelling, then this will be just right for you. But that's all for this video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm out here. I'm about to, ayy.